finally I'm getting to the Perforator, and this one, yeah, this one's special. So the Perforator has these meteors that strike on crit or weak point hit, and because of that, a lot of people pair it up with Haley because she brings more crit chance to the table. Although her crits are definitely helpful, I feel like there's so much more synergy that can happen with a different Descendant. And so I wanted to do something a little bit more outside of the box, and I feel like this weapon is just perfect for Lepic, which is a little bit more creative. Wad up all the enemies into a ball and use only one bullet to eliminate all of them, or a few bullets. And that just extends the power of your mag, or extends the power of those meteors. If this looks easy to you, it's because it is. And this Lepic build is not a meta build, but he does actually make this quite easy. It is so much fun, I can't even tell you. So if you're a shooter out there and you like synergies and off meta builds, then this one's for you. Let's get into the details.
Makes it exciting!
And so I recently made a Lepic build that centers on his traction grenade, and then from there it's skill damage. Well, this one I reworked to fit around the Perforator. So we're still centering on the traction grenade, but no skill damage. And that opens up a lot of survivability. Okay, let's start with what the Perforator does. So basically when you crit or hit a weak point, it's going to spawn meteors. So when you crit, you're going to get 5 meteors. When you land on the head, you're going to get 1 meteor. When you crit on the head, you're going to get 6. 1 plus 5. The range is 5 meters, and the damage is going to be your firearm damage by 35%. The duration of detect will be 10 seconds. That's going to give you additional weak point damage of 10%. What you need to know about the meteors is that they're basically going to scale from your crit damage and weapon damage. So elements are going to be a separate factor outside of that. So that gives you a direction on how we're going to build. For the Perforator's base attributes, I have rounds per magazine. It doesn't have to be perfect. Firearm critical hit damage, firearm attack, and then crit chance. Basically got our core modules that you see on every weapon, and then from there, I'm lifting crits as much as possible because Lepic doesn't have a good set of base crits to help the weapon out. But he does have some other perks for this up his sleeve, which is an increase in weapon damage, and that's why we're using him. So he buffs weapon damage, and that is the core of what those meteors are going to be powered up by. So he's going to wad up all the enemies into a little ball. He's going to hold them still so you can land that weak point hit or headshot and then crit on it, because you're going to lift those crits. And then when you do, you're going to get that extra weapon damage that Lepic applies. We'll get there in a second. So we got rifling reinforcement for 32% firearm attack, action reaction for 61% firearm attack at the cost of recoil. And then I'm running edging shot to push up critical hit rate as high as I can at the cost of weapon damage, but that's okay. We're making up for that in other places. Better concentration for more critical hit damage at 43%. Concentration priority for another 36% crit hit damage at the cost of reload time, but that's okay. We got that covered. We got expand weapon charge for more rounds to the mag. We got reload insight for a decrease in reload with an increase in crit hit rate. Better insight for firearm crit hit rate of plus 35%, and then recycling genius for faster reloads. A couple of these mods are flexible for you to change based on how you like to play, like expand weapon charge, reload insight, and recycling genius can all be swapped out. Some people don't like concentration priority. There are some other crit hit damage options, but I felt like it's fine. Got my reload time to 1.2 seconds, and I felt like that was better for 400% solo infiltrations than putting on a bigger mag. That's because we're tracking all the enemies into a ball, so you really don't need that big of a mag. And with the reload so fast, it allows you to chain your mags together. And so I feel like you're just going to get a lot more mileage out of the faster reload than you are an extra 1 or 2 bullets in your mag. But as you can see, I did balance the idea a little bit. So I have expand weapon charge, and then we have a larger magazine on the weapon attributes, and that's why I prioritized reloads here. For the ultimate mod, I decided to go with dopaminergic activation, if that's how you say it. Sorry if I screwed that up. But on weak point hit, critical hit rate is plus 45%. Firearm crit hit damage is at 70% with a cooldown of 5 seconds. And I tried so many other ones in this spot, and I felt like this one was the best. I did try payout, but again, you don't need that unlimited ammo because you're wiping whole groups of enemies in 1 or 2 shots. You don't need to over spam the trigger. I felt like the added crits is doing amazing here. Now on paper, it shows we have 42% firearm crit chance, and then 4.99 or 5x or 500% crit hit damage. And boy, is this build strong. I'm not going to talk it up. I'm just going to let the gameplay footage do all the talking there. Now let's look at Lepic's setup. There's two things that we're really playing into here. One is the traction grenade. So that's what sucks everybody in. So the idea here is to get the cooldown as low as possible so we can spam it, which we are, and get the range as wide as possible so that it can pull in the entire room, and it does. And then from there, we're running the power unit change transcendent mod. So this works for regular Lepic also, but overclock no longer increases skill power, it increases firearm attack instead. So if you look here, it's going to increase the firearm attack by 52%. That's not a little bit. That's very nice. And so I feel like that's a great exchange. So we're not critting as much as we would with Haley, but this makes up for it. And again, you don't need to overdo the crits. And then there's also a burn damage duration, but everybody's dying from the explosion, so it's all good. And notice the 7.4 second duration. Otherwise, he has this close call immunity thing when he's almost dead, so that's helpful. Okay, this is what his overall mod setup looks like. Okay, so first things first, we need to get our skill cooldowns as low as possible, and we don't care about skill damage. But feel free to roll into skill damage if you want to. We're going to use Nimble Fingers to give us 25.6% cooldown. Then we're doing MP conversion for another 36.5% skill cooldown at the cost of 15% max MP. Because we're hardly using any of our skills, MP will not be an issue. All right, I'm running Focus on Fire, and I didn't roll it up because I just wanted the cooldown. Feel free to roll it up if you want to. Okay, and then I'm using Focus on Tech for the same reasons. So it does give us Tech skill power modifier and more skill cooldown. Now that we have our cooldown taken care of, the next priority is going to be range. You want to go for the obvious skill expansion for 92% range, and then maximize range for another 94% at the cost of skill power. We're okay with that because the traction grenade doesn't require skill power. That's going to get us to 25.8 meters. The max expandable range is 300%. All right, to further power up our weapon, we are taking Shot Focus. That's going to give us another 15% firearm attack at the cost of skill power modifier. So we just made that Perforator even stronger. Now let's go for survivability. We need increased HP for max HP at 218%. And then I took on Stim Accelerant for another 234% HP at the cost of MP. And then the last one is a flexible slot. There's a lot of different ways you can go, including HP on kill, but I took skill extension, which is giving us another 36.5% duration. So that holds them together longer and allows you to pull people in from further out. All in all, we're at 81% skill cooldowns. I'm running a Burning Mechanics reactor with the Perforator mounting. That's fire, boost ratio, tech, skill power boost ratio. And then I have more duration and skill cooldown here. You could also go range here. Cooldown is probably the best in slot. You could also take a damage thing like tech. And just so you know, it's not a must to have the mounting for your weapon, but it does help when you decide to use your explosives. And from time to time, I would throw in one of his skill damage skills. Okay, now this is going to be a surprise. For your external components, I'm running a purple set. It's called Acrobat. And by running 4 pieces, I got 21% more firearm critical hit rate. Also, 6% skill crit hit rate, which we're not really using. But look, even more firearm attack at 2.8%, which is just a little bit. And then skill power at 1.7. So very helpful. So you're probably thinking like you took a hit on your survivability by not running gold tier mods. Well, you don't have to worry about that because look, we have 17,000 HP. That's pretty darn good, I gotta say. And then he's got that immunity thing in case you get in trouble. And you have room to add more HP or more survivability at least if you want to. Remember, skill extension is a flexible slot. You could put a defensive mod there. It's the same socket type. You could put more shield there if you want to. You could put recovery. There's all sorts of defensive modifications you can put in that slot. So there's more survivability on the table, but you just don't need it because you are controlling the crowd controlling. It really is quite striking on how easy Lepic plus the Perforator can make these 400% infiltrations solo. You really are cruising. Just keep moving and make sure you just have good positioning. Where it can get hard, depending on the infiltration, is the boss room. And it really just depends on what kind of status effects or lock-on capabilities those bosses have. And if the bosses have like really good regeneration and a horrible combination of status effects and lock-on capabilities, it might be a good idea to bring the Albion Cavalry LMG as a backup weapon for the boss room. The Perforator is very powerful, and for many of these, it does make the bosses a breeze, but it's always good to have a backup plan. This is definitely one of my favorites. I love the traction grenade, and the Perforator I feel like is just made for Lepic. I hope you give this one a try. Catch you on the next one. Thank you for hanging out with me. My name is Tuxedo Bandido. That's Tito Bandido.
One and only.
And this was another episode of The First Descendant. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, like, and turn on notifications to ensure you don't miss out on the fantastic experiences waiting for you in The First Descendant. And if you like videos like this, check out the one I have recommended for you right here. If you have anything you want to see covered, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And thank you to all the channel members and donors who make everything possible. Tux Nation wouldn't be without you.
When you buy or download anything for The First Descendant, be sure to use Tux's creator code to support the channel. Easy peasy.
Follow me.